role of NGOs and of stakeholder engagement in pediatric palliative care. We actually have talked about doctors and nurses, and then in fact in India and perhaps all over the world, it is NGOs that have played a big part in pediatric palliative care, and there is a real reason why. For those of you who don't know, CanKids is a National Society for Change for Childhood Cancer in India, and we work in today 46 cancer centers across the country. We are patient navigators and patient advocates, and what we're doing is really bridging gaps and supporting to make possible the best treatment, care, and support. And what I want to highlight too is it's difficult sometimes to say what's palliative care and what's supportive care, but we're not a palliative care NGO. We do palliative care for the most obvious reasons, because curative and palliative care needs to go together. And that's why when we are supporting children, that's what we need to do. So just very briefly, we work in, as I said, 46 centers. We have care centers like a home away from home. We have 4 of them. We have a school in Mumbai, and we have a very beautiful pediatric palliative care center, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about. And since 2004, when we first started, we've actually supported over 28,000 families of children with cancer. But just the weirdest bit, every 3 minutes, a child is diagnosed with cancer somewhere in the world. And each year, more than 215,000 children from the age of 0 to 15 and 85,000 children between the ages of 15 and 19 are diagnosed with one of 16 types of cancer. So that's the world statistic, right? And then when we come to India, we look at the same figures and we see that in India, that same figure is 40 to 50,000 in the age group of 0 to 15, and maybe about 20 to 30,000 odd. We don't know that figure. We don't have good registry data. But we would say that about 70 to 80,000 children who are diagnosed with cancer in India each year. And when we see that while worldwide 70 to 95% children are being cured of cancer because of better treatment, because of better protocols, but in India, it's estimated that 60 to 70% children are dying of cancer. So it's but obvious that that is a real need for palliative care, even if we just defined palliative care as terminal care, which it is not. In our country, 60% of the children don't make it to a cancer center anywhere, so we actually have a fair amount of data ourselves by working in all these centers to know that if it's 50,000 children in the age group of 0 to 15 each year, not more than 20,000 are making it to any cancer center anywhere, which means the remaining 30,000 are probably dying unless Baba Ramdev or someone is really doing a good job of keeping them alive. And when they do, their cancers are often in very advanced stages. And when they actually come for treatment, they often abandon because they don't get proper supportive care, they don't get financial help. When they're already in advanced stages, the one thing that they do need a lot of is palliative care support, and that is something that they miss and they lack. And that's exactly why we do what we do. So obviously this is part of actually the CanKids mission statement, but I think all of us would agree this is what we all work for: the children, for their families, for good treatment, care, and support, for social and economic support, to make sure they get all the emotional support, and for reintegration into society and continuity of care. And that continuity of care is survivorship or good terminal care, end-of-life care, and bereavement support. That then is our vision statement of CanKids, and why I brought this up is to tell you that while we work for higher standards of survival, we also work for quality of life. All of us do. Earlier this morning, Dr. Mahajan was arguing with Gayatri and me, and she said, maybe you guys shouldn't call it palliative care at all. Maybe you should call it quality of life. But actually, yes, whether a child is going to be cured or not, what they do need, the child and the family, is quality of life. And in fact, if that's what palliative care is, then, more power to palliative care. That's what we all have to ensure. And then finally, we have to talk about the rights of the child and the family. And again, that's important that we look at their health, we look at for children, that they're educated through the treatment, that they actually have a childhood, they play, they have fun, and they have a right to be heard. Again, something we discussed in some of the cases this morning, that often we're not listening to our children and what they say. Importantly, the children have a right to be pain-free and to receive proper palliative care. So we developed two models, and the one is a model of holistic care, and the other is what we call our bigger model of change for childhood cancer in India. And when we do that, we work in the hospitals, we work closely with treating centers, and we provide social support services, and we provide social support teams. And all of this is for family-centered care. So I think I want to reiterate that even when we look at all the services that NGOs would provide, and when I talk about CanKids, I must say this is what any NGO would work with, standalone or with a treating center, to provide the whole range of services that families would need, and in a manner of speaking, provide the support to a treating center so that we can actually work well together to provide what we need for our families. So the other part of what we do at CanKids, just briefly, is that we, as I said, we partner with treating centers. In the case of pediatric palliative care in our center here in Delhi, we partner with all the hospitals that are close by. We work state by state. We work to build capacities, and in fact, it is our privilege to actually participate and set up this conference together with Veronique, Hanife, with INPOG, CIPLA, and of course with AIMS, because this is an important part of what we do as an NGO. As I speak, I'm highlighting all the aspects of what an NGO can actually do when we work in any space, in this case, pediatric palliative care. We also work on research and quality care and impact. And we work on stakeholder engagement, trying to bring stakeholders together, trying to facilitate that somehow we work together to arrive at common goals. So this, and I don't know how clearly you can see it, but it's basically a model for how to build up services in resource-limited countries in India when it comes to pediatric oncology. And if you see from a level 1 country all the way to a level 4 country, in a level 1 country, the most important thing, the most resource-limited country, the most important thing to provide is good palliative care, because we're still talking about very, very low survival rates. We're still talking about children coming in advanced stages of cancer. They need pain symptom management from moment go, and they need a lot of emotional and psychological support right through. So if we look at any model anywhere in the world, this is what it will say: palliative care, palliative care, palliative care, till you get to maybe, as I told a joint secretary one day, I said, how can you not talk of palliative care? Because if you don't, I mean, we're still in a world where, in the adult world, 50% survival rates, and in the world of children, maybe 70 to 95% internationally, but in our country, that's not it. So how can we not keep underscoring palliative care? And therefore, an important thing that I again want to highlight, something that I've observed a lot, we tend to continue to talk about just end-of-life care and terminal care, and even our own teams are often confused because it's difficult to integrate palliative care from the moment of diagnosis unless you work really closely with the treating team, or for that matter, as the treating team, as a doctor, a nurse, a social worker, or any healthcare person for that family, you understand both aspects, the curative and the palliative. So actually, it's as important for an oncology doctor and an oncology nurse and an oncology social worker to know about palliative care, in fact, even more. And I think that's one big reason why we want to continue to educate in this sphere. So if we look at these 4 aspects, and we all know these 4 aspects that deal with pediatric palliative care. So the physical aspect, the social aspect, the emotional aspect, and the spiritual aspect. And then let's look at how NGOs actually play a vital part, and perhaps why NGOs are so very present in the world of palliative care. So this is the WHO Cancer Control Knowledge into Action Manual on Palliative Care. And it says that the healthcare providers involved in palliative care may include that whole lot. And we've talked about and we've done sessions with physicians and nurses. But let's see what a social worker can do, or what a psychologist can do, what volunteers can do, and which is why they play a vital and important role in this space. So I've extracted from the WHO report, and I don't know if you can read it all the way at the back, but some of it is most obvious, right? The role of a social worker or a psychologist is to help the family and the patient deal with personal and social problems. And our social workers, when they meet the families, we provide social workers, but any social worker is actually navigating the family. Our parent group members are our patient navigators. They're providing information, they're telling a family where they can go, they're providing financial support, and that is not something a doctor or a nurse can do. So they vitally need a social support team. Whether that social support team is within your treating center or whether you tie up with an NGO, what's important to understand is the need for a social worker, the need for psychologists, counselors, and volunteers, because it's time intensive. A doctor in a very, very busy OPD cannot spend the length of time to actually help a parent who doesn't even understand what chemotherapy means, what is going to happen to his child as they go through the whole cancer journey. And so you need social workers, you need psychologists, you need volunteers. I think palliative care or emotional and psychological support is extremely time intensive. It takes a lot of time. You could spend the whole day with one patient. And I know many, many cases where people have spent, I mean, there are times in our center that I think the whole team is just working with one family the whole day to resolve some issues, to resolve problems. And it could be a social problem, it could be a psychological problem, it could be some spiritual angst, it could be something that needs psychological support. And it's very, very quality intensive. So how do you provide that kind of manpower in any country, let alone a resource-limited country? You provide it by actually having good volunteers and training them so that they can work alongside with you. Perhaps to come read a book, perhaps to come play some music for a child, perhaps to do something with the families, perhaps to just offer respite care. Same thing with educating the families or the caregivers. Very important part. A lot of children's treatment is on outpatient basis. The families go back home. We've started a whole patient education program. Every Friday, we'd run a patient education program at our center. And a big part of it is to help the parents or the caregivers actually take care of their children when they go home. And that, I think, is really, really important as well. And again, a big piece that an NGO can do. So looking at it again, what is the role of NGOs in pediatric palliative care? Number one, providing social support services. Having someone, you know, in some of the top-notch private hospitals, you'll see someone with a badge which says, "May I help you?" And really it is someone who's a patient navigator. I have Ava here, who I think is one of the best patient navigators I know. She's a parent of a child with cancer, who today actually holds the hand of a family and takes them to room number 13 and room number 12 and to the blood bank, gives them the information, runs around with them. There's Suman, there's so many others, but they could be also social workers. And so patient navigation is a very important part. Patient education and information is important. Providing the financial support is important for treatment, for palliation, for education of the child, for accommodation, maybe for the kind of food the child needs, for gifts, for transport, for funeral expenses, for reintegration and livelihoods. Because so many of our families, when they come here, have no other means of earning or looking after the rest of the family. So I think that financial help is something that you can count on your NGO to give you. And that is why, again, I cannot but underscore this bit. It's very, very vital. And I know for doctors and nurses who really care, it often becomes the most frustrating thing. I just want to give my kid a video game because the kid asked for a video game. And I think Dr. Rakesh mentioned this. I said, yeah, and he said, I just called up and told Abha, can you bring a video game for the child? And there it was. And I think that's important. It makes a doctor or a nurse, Sister Hanife spoke about looking after the nurses. And when the nurses are able to ask our team, can the kid have this? Can the child have that? It makes it so much easier for the nurse as well, for the nurses and the doctors, just as it does for the parent and the family. So psychological and emotional support, but of course, and finally spiritual support. As an NGO, Can Kids provides social support teams to hospitals when we partner with them, and we provide social workers, data managers, psychologists, counselors, teachers, dietitians, and patient navigators. And again, I think that's something in countries like India where the center itself may not have such an extensive team. Even a private hospital may not have more than one psychologist across the board. They may have 2 dietitians for the whole hospital. But we know that our child with cancer needs that one-on-one, and we know that when a child is in distress, it needs it even more than when a child is perhaps still doing quite well. So social support teams, partnerships are very, very important. Your NGOs can be good partners to work with you and work with both the pediatric oncology and the palliative center. I have to say, I don't like the separation between the 2 centers, and I think that it's something that we play a bridge on quite often, but equally we do value our partnerships with the centers. We do capacity building work, and I want to talk about advocacy, because advocacy is something that is critical when it comes to pediatric palliative care in India. I think we're such a nascent stage that if we want to push forward, sometimes we're advocating to pediatric oncologists, we're advocating to the government, we're advocating to the institution, we're advocating also to each other. We're advocating to the nurses are advocating to the doctors, but advocating is basically fighting, and we're all fighting really in a nice way, but fighting for the rights of the child and the family. So that's important, and that's something that we can do. I have a couple of survivors here today, and they're the best advocates for us, so we build them up and train them so that they can take on this role and be ambassadors and move it forward. Awareness and public education, again, putting it out in the media, talking about palliative care, talking about the needs, actually is something, again, an NGO can play a big part in, and leave doctors and nurses to focus on what they need to do and yet raise the issues that are important. And finally, when it comes to research and impact assessment. So all of these are things that we at Can Kids do, and these are things that an NGO can certainly support and play an active part. Some NGOs in India, like us and others, run inpatient services, outpatient services, home care services, and hospices. And I think a big reason why they do is the reasons I have outlined before, because at least 3 of those 4 elements are actually the spiritual, psychological, and the social aspects are better taken care of by an NGO. And then in many cases where there's a big gap, the NGO steps in and says, we can work with you even on the physical space. So just very quickly in terms of pediatric palliative care programs in India, the first of it that I know and I found out from various reports is the one that started in Thrissur in Kerala in 2001. And then the next one was the Pediatric Palliative Care Unit that was set up in an existing palliative care setup at the Tata Memorial in 2002. And I'm sure Dr. Marianne was a big part of the setting up of this unit. There was the Caring for Childhood Cancer and Chronic Illness Program in Calicut in Kerala in 2007. And then, of course, Gayatri's program, which is really much talked of and fantastic because it's the one program that really integrates curative and palliative from day one, and the 2 teams work as one. So to me, it's the best model when it comes to pediatric palliative care in India today. Then there's our own center, which started in 2012, and I'd like to tell you a little bit more about our center. I want to tell you that it's not a hospice, it's not an inpatient, it's all of these things put together. We have inpatient, we have daycare, it is a transition home for when the doctor says there's no more cure, for when maybe Dr. Sushma and her team say There's no space in our own palliative care setup. Can you please take them? The fact is that government and many, many institutions just don't have the room, and therefore our palliative center fills a big gap. It just sits close to All India Institute, Safdarjung Hospital. It's available to other hospitals in Delhi. It's been a difficult project for us, I have to confess, because we are not medical people, we're supportive care people, but it's been the most rewarding of projects. For me, it's my temple, because when you can make a child or a family comfortable and truly provide solace, when they come with a big tumor that big and they can't find place in the emergency and someone can take care of them at our center. When they come and they have a surgery the next day and they don't know where to go and they're struggling with the pain and there's no place in a busy government hospital, they can find place in the center. And I think, which is why this center is that important to us. So it's at Gautam Nagar, for those of you who don't know. It was launched in 2012. I have to say that Gayatri played a big part by coming and doing a workshop with us 2 or 3 years before. So we have relationships with a lot of the people here, a big piece of what we call stakeholder partnerships again. And we set this up with those two aims: to provide proper palliative care and supplement patient support at the hospitals near us and in Delhi NCR, and to network with other centers and with others to actually develop pediatric palliative care in India. And it's got 10 beds. It's a registered nursing home. We have a morphine license. We have inpatient, outpatient, daycare and emergency. We have palliative medical support facilities. There's pain and symptom management. There's a physiotherapy clinic. We have an in-house physiotherapist. We have recreation and complementary therapy room. We have a visiting psychologist who's here today, Anuradha, who's specifically dedicated to the palliative center. But Humayunis, who looks after our palliative care program, actually runs a terrific psycho-oncology service right there in the middle of the center. It caters to psycho-oncology across the country, but it's available for the Make-A-Wish, for the child life, and for all different aspects of the work we do. We also have a training center in the basement and a lovely kitchen cafeteria where Papuji cooks the best food. And so anybody ever wants to come by and have a meal with our patients and families, I think the food is really good. We all love Papuji. So that's sort of the team that we have. We have 2 doctors, 6 nurses, 2 aides, 3 patient navigators dedicated to the team, and then a full-fledged team that we're able to provide. And because it sits in the middle of all the supportive care that we do, it actually integrates into all the work that we do. And therefore, for us, it is a completely integrated model of care. Gayatri asked me in the morning, how's it different from the one that we do at MNG? And the reason it's different is it's outside the hospital. And therefore, it's a different administration. But actually, it performs the same function, which is to work closely, in this case, not just with the oncology centers and the oncology doctors, but as well with the palliative center and the palliative team at AIIMS or anywhere else, with the other NGOs as well, be it CanSupport, who does home care, or Global Cancer Concern, or any of the others who work in the space of palliative care. So just quick milestones since we started. And the people who support us, Cipla Foundation is here. They support us and work with us as well as Mankind, who supports us. For all of you should know that NGOs really have no income stream of their own, so we rely largely on funds that we raise. And thank you, Cipla Foundation, for helping us out as well as Mankind. So in the 5 years, our Pediatric Palliative Center has actually provided inpatient care to 1,141 children and their families, 517 of which were new admissions. We have an OPD ambulatory service, and this again is another underscoring of integrating the curative and the palliative, because when the treating centers ran out of space and they had children waiting endlessly just for an IV antibiotic, they asked us if they could come to our center to get these dosages. We're open 24/7. So as a result, we have our children and our doctors and our nurses. mostly in fact our nurses, hats off to them. They've run this beautiful ambulatory care service. It's properly supervised by the doctors at AIIMS, but resultingly what has happened is that since the families come in regularly, sometimes they have to be there for 3 dosages in the day. We're actually able to provide a lot of other OPD services as well. So this last year we started a very special project, which is a social support OPD. And now we run at the same time as the palliative OPD and the wound management clinic. We run a nutrition clinic. We run, the children are able to learn all day long. The teachers there all day long. Anybody who needs physiotherapy, that's available as well. And all these services are actually available to the family all the time for families who are actually on treatment. So I have to say that our terminal care is only about maybe 25% of all the children we see. So the rest is all around children who are still receiving treatment. So in that sense, we're definitely not the conventional term of hospice. Even my phone is saying, stop talking, Poonam Bagai. So I want to finish with this slide. I want to talk just for 2 minutes about what is stakeholder engagement. Very important, because we're so many stakeholders here today. We're doctors, we're nurses, we're psychologists and counselors, we're the social support team, and we're different types of organizations, institutions, treating institutions, we're oncology institution, we're palliative care set up, we're visiting faculty and international stakeholders. So we are a lot of stakeholders in this room, and it's an important time for us to also talk about what does it mean to be engaged as a stakeholder. So stakeholders engagement has the potential to ensure that key shared priorities are addressed. And these a stakeholder initiative actually belongs to everybody. So there's no leader. It also means that all members are equal participants. So for all those who are here today, this is what I'd like to ask you. We are stakeholders, and as I said, this is a list of what I talked about. Perhaps the only stakeholder not mentioned there is the government at the bottom, is not present here today. But all of us here today, and this is the question I want to raise. We've talked a lot, and you will continue to talk about this tomorrow as well, about pediatric palliative care. I think an excellent program has been organized. What is pediatric palliative care? What is end-of-life care? How do we look after our patients? What do we do with pain, pharmacological pain, and all these wonderful sessions. But as a group, we should also think about what are the priorities we want addressed as a pediatric palliative care community.